My son used his billionaire CEO father's last name to apply for a scholarship at his foundation. I never told him the truth. Mom, is it true? Is Maxwell Coleman really my father? The Maxwell Coleman? The teenager's voice cracked with emotion as he stared at his mother across their worn kitchen table, the prestigious scholarship letter trembling in his hands. Yes, Tyler. The man who runs the foundation that just made you a scholarship finalist is your father. But you told me he was just some programmer you worked with, not a tech billionaire who's on magazine covers. Why would you keep this from me my entire life? His mother's eyes filled with tears as she reached for his hand. Because 16 years ago, he made it very clear that he didn't want a child interfering with his empire. He offered me money to make us disappear. And now I've accidentally applied to his foundation, using his last name. Have you ever wondered what happens when a secret kept for 16 years suddenly explodes into the open? What would you do if your child unknowingly forced a confrontation with the powerful person who once threatened to destroy you? This is the story of a mother's sacrifice, a son's discovery, and a billionaire forced to face the child he never wanted to acknowledge. I'm Mr. Harrison, and today I'm sharing the remarkable journey of Tasha Williams and her brilliant son Tyler, whose search for educational opportunity led to an unexpected reckoning with the past. If you believe in the power of truth to overcome even the most carefully constructed barriers, give this video a like and join me for a story that will touch your heart and remind you that some connections can never truly be severed. The autumn rain tapped against the windows of Tasha Williams' small apartment as she stared at the letter in her hands, her heart pounding against her ribs. The Coleman Foundation Scholarship Committee letterhead gleamed in the soft lamplight, official and imposing. Mom? What is it? Tyler asked, looking up from his homework spread across their worn kitchen table. Tasha's fingers trembled slightly as she met her son's curious gaze. At 16, Tyler had her same determined chin and thoughtful eyes, but the rest, the strong jawline, the confident posture, the analytical mind that could solve complex equations as easily as breathing, those were all Maxwell's. It's from the Coleman Foundation, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. You've been selected as a finalist for their STEM scholarship. Tyler's face lit up with a smile that transformed him. Seriously? That's the full ride one, right? The one that covers everything through graduate school. Yes, Tasha nodded, pride and dread warring within her chest. The most prestigious one in the state. This is amazing. Tyler jumped up, his calculus homework forgotten. Do you know how many people apply for this? Thousands. And they only choose 10 finalists each year. Tasha forced a smile, genuinely proud of her brilliant son, while simultaneously terrified of what might come next. I know, honey. It's incredible. I have to call Grandma. And Ms. Patel. She's the one who told me to apply in the first place. Tyler was already reaching for his phone, excitement radiating from him in waves. Tyler, Tasha said quietly, stopping him mid-dial. There's something we need to discuss about this scholarship. What? His brow furrowed. Is there some catch? Do I have to maintain a certain GPA? Because you know I can do that. No, it's not that. Tasha took a deep breath. It's about the application. About the name you used. Tyler's confusion deepened. What do you mean? I used my name, Tyler Coleman Williams. The name hung between them, heavy with unspoken history. Tyler had always used his full name on academic documents, proud of the connection to the father he'd never known. Tasha had never discouraged it, telling herself it was his right to claim both sides of his heritage. That's what we need to talk about, she said gently. About your father. To understand how Tasha and Tyler arrived at this pivotal moment, we need to go back 17 years, to when a brilliant young software engineer named Tasha Williams first walked through the doors of quantum dynamics. Fresh out of MIT with a master's degree in computer science, Tasha had beaten out hundreds of applicants for a coveted position on the company's encryption team. At 24, she was younger than most of her colleagues, but her innovative approach to algorithm design had caught the attention of the hiring committee. What she didn't know then was that the company's founder, Maxwell Coleman, had personally flagged her application after reviewing her thesis on quantum encryption protocols. Your work on multi-layered authentication is fascinating, a deep voice said behind her on her third day. As she worked late into the evening, Tasha turned to find Maxwell Coleman himself standing in the doorway of her workspace, his tall frame silhouetted against the hallway light. At 32, he was already a legend in the tech world, having built quantum dynamics from a startup in his garage to a multimillion-dollar company in just 6 years. "Mr. Coleman," she stammered, rising quickly. "I didn't realize anyone else was still here. Maxwell, please." He smiled, the expression warming his otherwise serious face. "And I'm often here late. The quiet helps me think." That first conversation lasted until midnight, as they discussed encryption theories and the future of digital security. By the time they realized how late it had grown, something had shifted between them. A connection formed through shared intellectual passion. "You see the patterns others miss," Maxwell told her that night. "That's rare, even among brilliant people." For Tasha, who had spent her life feeling slightly out of step with those around her, his understanding was intoxicating. Here was someone who spoke her language, who valued the way her mind worked. Their relationship evolved gradually over the next few months. Late-night discussions about work became dinners at exclusive restaurants. Theoretical debates gave way to more personal conversations. Despite company policies discouraging relationships between executives and staff, they found themselves drawn together by a connection that felt both intellectual and deeply emotional. "I've never met anyone who challenges me the way you do," Maxwell told her 6 months later, as they stood on the balcony of his penthouse overlooking the city lights. "You make me see possibilities I wouldn't have considered." For nearly a year, Tasha believed she had found her perfect match, a partner who respected her mind and seemed to value her as an equal. The fact that their relationship remained private didn't bother her. She understood the complications it could create in the workplace. Then came the morning she discovered she was pregnant. "I don't understand," Maxwell said when she told him, his voice unervingly calm as he sat behind his massive desk. "We were careful. No method is 100% effective," Tasha replied, her hand unconsciously moving to her still flat stomach. "But I hoped you might be happy about this." The silence that followed told her everything. Maxwell's expression shifted, the warmth she'd grown to love replaced by a calculating look she'd only seen him direct at business competitors. "This is unfortunate timing," he said finally. "The company is entering a critical growth phase. We're preparing for our first major public offering." "I know that," Tasha said, her voice smaller than she intended. "But this isn't about the company. This is about us. About our child." Maxwell leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "Tasha, you're brilliant. You have an extraordinary career ahead of you. A child now would derail everything you've worked for." "Maybe I want both," she countered. "A career and a family. People manage it every day. Not at the level we operate at." He opened a drawer and removed a checkbook. "I'm prepared to provide whatever financial support you need to handle this situation discreetly." The implication hung in the air between them, chilling Tasha to her core. "You want me to terminate the pregnancy?" "I want us both to make rational decisions about our futures," Maxwell replied, his pen poised over the checkbook. "How much would help you move past this and refocus on your career?" Tasha stared at him, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity the man behind the brilliant mind she'd fallen for. "I'm keeping this baby, Maxwell." His expression hardened. "Then I'll make a different offer. A settlement. Enough for you to start fresh somewhere else. A clean break for both of us." "You want me to leave the company?" "To leave you." The pain in her chest was physical, a crushing weight that made it difficult to breathe. "It's the logical solution," he said, as if discussing a business transaction. "You'll have financial security. The child will be provided for, and both our lives can continue without unnecessary complications." "This child isn't a complication," Tasha said, her voice strengthening with protective instinct. "This is your son or daughter." Maxwell's eyes cooled further. "I'm not prepared to be a father, Tasha. My focus needs to remain on quantum dynamics. We're changing the world with our work. I can't divide my attention." "So that's it?" You're just erasing us from your life with a check. I'm offering you a generous solution to an unfortunate situation." His tone was final, brooking no argument. "Take some time to consider it rationally, without emotional interference." Tasha stood, dignity straightening her spine despite the tears threatening to fall. "I don't need time. I won't take your money to disappear. This child deserves to know their father." Maxwell's expression darkened. "If you pursue this, if you try to establish paternity or seek child support through legal channels, you should understand what you're facing. I have resources you can't imagine and attorneys who can tie up any claim in courts for years. By the time it's resolved, you'll have nothing left." The threat was delivered in the same measured tone he used in board meetings, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Are you threatening me?" Tasha asked, disbelief coloring her voice. "I'm explaining reality," Maxwell replied. "I've worked too hard building this company to have my reputation complicated by an unplanned pregnancy with an employee. Make the sensible choice, Tasha. Take the settlement. If you've ever had to choose between your dignity and your security, hit that like button. And if you believe that some principles are worth standing up for, even against overwhelming odds, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for more stories that celebrate courage in the face of intimidation." 2 weeks after that devastating conversation, Tasha Williams cleared out her desk at Quantum Dynamics. She left behind not only the job she loved, but the man she had believed loved her. With no settlement check and only her savings to sustain her, she moved 300 miles away to start a new life for herself and the child growing within her. Tyler Coleman Williams was born on a snowy February morning. A healthy 8-pound boy with a shock of dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything around him with unusual focus. The moment the nurse placed him in her arms, Tasha knew she would never regret her decision. "It's just you and me, little one," she whispered, tracing his perfect features with a gentle finger. "But I promise we're going to be okay." True to her word, Tasha sent Maxwell a birth announcement with a photo of their newborn son. She included her new address and phone number, leaving the door open for him to be part of Tyler's life if he chose. The announcement was met with silence. The early years were harder than Tasha had anticipated. She found work at Meridian Tech, a smaller company that paid considerably less than Quantum Dynamics. Daycare costs consumed nearly half her salary, and the remainder barely covered rent and necessities. There were nights she went to bed hungry to ensure Tyler had enough to eat, and winters when she layered sweaters rather than turning up the heat. But there were joys too, profound ones that made every sacrifice worthwhile. Tyler's first smile, his first steps, the way his eyes lit up when he figured something out. By age 3, he was completing puzzles designed for children twice his age. By 5, he was reading chapter books and asking questions about how computers worked. As Tyler grew, so did the inevitable questions about his father. "Do I have a dad?" he asked at age 6, after a Father's Day celebration at school left him making a card for his grandfather instead. Tasha had prepared for this moment, crafting a version of the truth that protected both Tyler's sense of self-worth and his right to know his origins. "Yes, you do have a father," she told him. "His name is Maxwell Coleman. He's very smart like you. He helped create you, but he wasn't ready to be a dad when you were born. Doesn't he want to meet me?" Tyler asked, his voice small. Tasha chose her words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make choices based on what's happening in their lives at a certain time. Your father was very focused on his work when you were born. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It was about him, not about you. As Tyler grew older, the questions became more specific, and Tasha adjusted her answers accordingly, always maintaining the core truth that Maxwell had chosen not to be involved while avoiding details that might damage Tyler's self-image. What she didn't tell him was that Maxwell Coleman had gone from millionaire to billionaire in the years since Tyler's birth. That his face now appeared on business magazines and tech conference posters. That Quantum Dynamics had become one of the most valuable companies in the world, with government contracts and global influence. By the time Tyler entered high school, Tasha's financial situation had improved somewhat. Years of hard work had earned her a senior developer position at Meridian, with a salary that allowed them to move to a slightly larger apartment in a better school district. For the first time, she could afford to enroll Tyler in the advanced science programs his brilliant mind craved. It was in his sophomore year that Tyler's exceptional abilities caught the attention of his AP physics teacher, Ms. Patel. "Your son has a remarkable mind," she told Tasha during a parent-teacher conference. "His project on quantum computing applications for climate modeling is beyond undergraduate level. It's graduate-level work." Pride swelled in Tasha's chest. "He's always been curious about how things work." "This goes beyond curiosity," Ms. Patel insisted. "Tyler has the kind of innovative thinking that could change fields. But he needs opportunities beyond what our school can provide." She slid a brochure across the desk. "The Coleman Foundation STEM Scholarship. It's the most prestigious in the state, possibly the country. Full ride through graduate school, plus mentorship from leading scientists and access to research facilities most professionals would envy." Tasha's blood ran cold as she stared at the glossy brochure, the familiar Coleman Foundation logo staring back at her. Of course Maxwell would create a foundation. Of course he would fund scholarships. It was what billionaires did to burnish their public image and reduce their tax burden. "I don't think," she began. "Please consider it," Ms. Patel interrupted. "The application deadline is next month. Tyler's quantum computing project would make him a strong candidate. This could change his life." Tasha took the brochure home but said nothing to Tyler about it. She tucked it into her desk drawer, telling herself she was protecting him from inevitable disappointment. The Coleman Foundation surely received thousands of applications each year. The chances of Tyler being selected were minuscule, but the brochure nagged at her conscience. Was she really protecting Tyler, or was she protecting herself from the possibility of Maxwell discovering their connection? Was her fear of confronting the past robbing her son of an opportunity he deserved? 2 days before the deadline, Tasha found Tyler at the kitchen table, laptop open to the Coleman Foundation website. "Ms. Patel gave me the information," he explained, not looking up from the screen. "She says I should apply, that my quantum computing project could really stand out." Tasha's heart raced. "Tyler, there are other scholarships. None like this one," he countered, scrolling through the benefits. "Mom, do you know what I could do with access to these research facilities? The mentorship program alone would open doors most people never even get to knock on." Looking at his eager face, Tasha couldn't bring herself to stand in his way. This was his future, his chance to access opportunities she could never provide on her own. "Okay," she said finally. "If you want to apply, you should." "Thanks, Mom." Tyler's smile was radiant as he began filling out the online form. "I'm using my full name, Tyler Coleman Williams. It sounds more professional, don't you think?" Tasha nodded, unable to speak past the knot in her throat. She told herself the name wouldn't matter, that even if the application reached the foundation, it wouldn't necessarily cross Maxwell's desk. That even if it did, he might not make the connection after all these years. For weeks after Tyler submitted his application, Tasha jumped every time the phone rang or an email notification appeared. But as days turned into weeks with no word from the foundation, she began to relax. Perhaps they hadn't selected Tyler's application for further consideration. Perhaps the danger had passed. Then came the rainy autumn evening when Tyler collected the mail and brought up a thick envelope bearing the Coleman Foundation logo. If you've ever had to face the consequences of a decision made years ago, tap that like button. And if you believe that truth has a way of emerging no matter how deeply it's buried, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for more stories about the moments that define our lives and the courage it takes to face them. The Coleman Foundation, she began slowly, was established by Maxwell Coleman. Your father. Tyler's eyes widened. Wait. My father is that Maxwell Coleman? The tech billionaire? The one who founded quantum dynamics? Tasha nodded, watching emotions flicker across her son's face. Shock, disbelief, dawning comprehension. But you said he was just some programmer you worked with, Tyler said, his voice rising. You never said he was. He gestured wordlessly, unable to articulate the enormity of what he was learning. I know, Tasha acknowledged. I didn't tell you the whole truth. Why? The single word contained 16 years of questions. Tasha's mind flashed back to that final confrontation in Maxwell's sleek downtown office, his cold amber eyes assessing her as if she were a disappointing investment. I was 24, she began, working as a software engineer at Quantum Dynamics. Your father was 32 and already a millionaire many times over. We were part of the same development team for a revolutionary encryption algorithm. She paused, remembering the intoxicating early days. The late nights coding side by side, the exhilarating intellectual connection, the way Maxwell had seemed to see her, truly see her brilliance in a way no one else ever had. We were together for almost a year. It wasn't public, office relationships were discouraged, especially with the founder. But it was intense and real. At least I thought it was. Tyler listened intently, absorbing every word of this revelation about his origins. When I told him I was pregnant, everything changed. Tasha's voice hardened slightly at the memory. He offered me money to take care of it. When I refused, he offered a settlement instead. A significant amount in exchange for my silence and my resignation. He didn't want me, Tyler said flatly. He didn't want the complication, Tasha corrected gently. Maxwell was building an empire. A child with an employee didn't fit his narrative. So you took the money and left? There was a note of accusation in Tyler's voice that pierced Tasha's heart. No, she said firmly. I refused his offer. I told him I didn't want his money, but that you deserved to know your father. He made it very clear that wasn't an option. He said if I pursued paternity or child support, he would bury me in legal battles until there was nothing left. Tyler's expression darkened. He threatened you? Not physically, Tasha clarified, but he made it clear what would happen if I challenged him. He had unlimited resources and an army of attorneys. I had student loans and a baby on the way. So you just gave up? Tyler asked, the hurt evident in his voice. Tasha reached across the table, taking her son's hand. I chose a different path. I moved here, found a job at Meridian Tech, and built a life for us. A good life. Without him, Tyler said. Yes, Tasha acknowledged. But I never legally surrendered your connection to him. That's why your birth certificate lists him as your father. That's why you have his name. I wanted to leave that door open for you, even if he chose to keep it closed. Tyler was quiet for a long moment, processing. Does he know about me now? After all this time? He knows you exist, Tasha said carefully. I sent him a birth announcement and your photo every year on your birthday until you were 5. He never responded. And now I've applied for his scholarship, Tyler said, understanding dawning. Using his name. Yes. Tasha squeezed his hand. The selection committee will see your application. They'll see your name, your address, your school. And eventually it will reach Maxwell. What do you think will happen? Tyler asked, vulnerability creeping into his voice. Tasha wished she had a comforting answer, but she'd never lied to her son about important things, and she wouldn't start now. I don't know. He might ignore it. He might try to disqualify you. Or he might finally acknowledge you. Do you think he'll be angry? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Tasha considered her words carefully. Your father doesn't experience emotions the way most people do, she said finally. He sees the world as a series of problems to solve and assets to acquire. You're neither a problem nor an asset to him, you're an unknown variable. And Maxwell has always been uncomfortable with variables he can't control. Tyler nodded slowly, his analytical mind, so like his father's, processing this information methodically. So what do we do now? That depends on what you want, Tasha said. We could withdraw your application, or we could let it proceed and prepare for whatever comes next. Would withdrawing even matter at this point? They've already seen my name. Probably not, Tasha admitted. The connection has been made. Tyler was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady with a determination that reminded Tasha so much of herself at his age. I want the scholarship, he said. I earned it. My work, my grades, my research project, Those are what got me to the finals, not his name. Pride swelled in Tasha's chest. You're right. You did earn it. And if he has a problem with that, Tyler continued, a hint of defiance entering his voice, then he can face me himself instead of pretending I don't exist. Tasha studied her son's face, seeing the boy she'd raised and the man he was becoming, brilliant, principled, and braver than she'd been at twice his age. Okay, she said simply. Then we proceed. As Tyler returned to his homework with renewed focus, Tasha gazed out at the rain-slicked streets below their apartment. Somewhere across the city, in a gleaming tower of glass and steel, Maxwell Coleman was about to discover that some variables couldn't be controlled, only reckoned with. And for the first time in 16 years, Tasha wasn't afraid of that reckoning. If you believe that our choices define us more than our circumstances, give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to see more stories about courage in the face of intimidation, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison and hit that notification bell. The Coleman Foundation headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a sleek downtown skyscraper, its glass and steel exterior reflecting the morning sunlight as Tasha and Tyler approached. The scholarship finalist interviews were scheduled for today, and despite Tasha's offer to wait outside, Tyler had asked her to accompany him. I want you there, he'd said that morning as he carefully knotted his tie. A thrift store find they'd purchased specifically for this occasion. Whatever happens, we face it together. Now, as they rode the elevator to the 47th floor, Tasha watched her son's reflection in the polished doors. He stood tall, shoulders back, his expression composed despite the enormity of what might await them. In his dark blue suit with his father's jawline and her determined eyes, he looked older than his 16 years, ready to step into whatever future awaited him. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area of understated luxury. Soft lighting, original artwork, and furnishings that whispered of wealth without shouting it. A poised young woman greeted them from behind a curved desk of pale wood. Tyler Williams? For the scholarship interview. She smiled professionally. The other finalists are already in the conference room. If you'll follow me? As they walked down a corridor lined with awards and recognition plaques, Tasha felt a growing sense of unreality. For years, Maxwell Coleman had existed in her mind as a painful memory, a lesson learned, a chapter closed. Now she was walking through the physical manifestation of the empire he'd chosen over their child. The conference room held 8 other teenagers and their parents, all dressed in their finest, all radiating the same mixture of nervousness and hope. A long table of refreshments stood against one wall, untouched by the anxious finalists. Please help yourselves to refreshments, their guide suggested. The selection committee will begin interviews in 15 minutes. Each finalist will have 30 minutes to present their project and answer questions. As the woman left, Tyler turned to his mother. Do you think he'll be on the committee? I don't know, Tasha admitted. It's possible. Tyler nodded, squaring his shoulders. I'm ready either way. A distinguished-looking woman in her 60s entered the room, clipboard in hand. Good morning, finalists. I'm Dr. Eleanor Winters, head of the selection committee. We'll be conducting interviews in alphabetical order, so please be prepared when your name is called. As the interviews began, Tasha watched the other parents. Their proud smiles, their whispered encouragements to their children. None of them knew the stakes for Tyler went far beyond a scholarship. None of them realized that behind the polished veneer of this foundation lay a personal reckoning 16 years in the making. One by one, the other finalists were called and returned, some looking relieved, others disappointed. The morning stretched on, and still no sign of Maxwell Coleman. Tyler Williams, Dr. Winters finally called, consulting her clipboard. Tyler stood, straightening his tie one last time. That's me. Good luck, Tasha whispered, squeezing his hand. Remember, no matter what happens in there, I'm proud of you. Tyler followed Dr. Winters down the hallway to a smaller conference room where 4 people sat behind a table, their expressions professionally neutral as he entered. Tasha, allowed to observe but not participate, took a seat in the back corner. Tyler Williams, Dr. Winters began. Please tell the committee about your quantum computing project and its potential applications for climate modeling. With remarkable poise, Tyler launched into his presentation. Tasha watched with pride as he explained complex concepts with clarity and confidence, his passion for the subject evident in every word. The committee members leaned forward, clearly engaged, occasionally interjecting with questions that Tyler answered thoughtfully. 20 minutes into the interview, the door at the back of the room opened silently. Tasha felt his presence before she saw him. A shift in the air, a prickling awareness that raised the hair on her arms. Maxwell Coleman stood in the doorway, taller than she remembered, his dark hair now threaded with distinguished silver at the temples. His expensive suit fit his athletic frame perfectly, and the watch on his wrist probably cost more than her annual salary. But it was his expression that caught and held her attention. The slight narrowing of his eyes as he studied Tyler, the almost imperceptible tightening of his jaw. He recognized something. Whether it was Tyler's name on the finalist list or the unmistakable physical resemblance, Maxwell Coleman was seeing his son for the first time, and he knew it. Tyler, deep in answering a question about quantum decoherence, hadn't noticed the new arrival. But Dr. Winters had. "Mr. Coleman," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "We weren't expecting you today." Tyler's head snapped up, his explanation faltering mid-sentence as he turned toward the door. For a long moment, father and son stared at each other across the room. 16 years of absence crystallized in a single, electric moment of recognition. "Please continue, Mr. Williams," Maxwell said. His voice controlled as he moved to an empty chair at the committee table. "I apologize for the interruption." Tyler blinked, visibly gathering himself. "Of course." He cleared his throat and resumed his explanation, but Tasha could see the slight tremor in his hands, the heightened color in his cheeks. For the remainder of the interview, Maxwell said nothing, his expression unreadable as he studied Tyler with an intensity that seemed to fill the room. Only when Dr. Winters announced that the time was up did he finally speak. "I have one more question, if you don't mind," he said, his gaze never leaving Tyler's face. "Your application lists your full name as Tyler Coleman Williams. Is there a particular reason for the middle name?" The room went still. The other committee members exchanged confused glances, clearly missing the significance of the question. But Tyler, to Tasha's immense pride, met his father's gaze steadily. "It's a family name," he said, his voice clear and unwavering. "From my father's side." Maxwell's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or respect. "I see. Thank you for clarifying." "Thank you for your time, Tyler," Dr. Winters interjected, sensing undercurrents she didn't understand. "The committee will make its decision within the week." As Tyler gathered his materials, Maxwell stood. "Dr. Winters, I'd like a word with Mr. Williams and his mother privately before they leave." Tasha's heart raced as the other committee members filed out, leaving the three of them alone in the suddenly too small room. 16 years of imagined confrontations hadn't prepared her for the reality of standing face to face with Maxwell again, with their son between them. "Tyler," Maxwell said, his voice softer now that they were alone. "Your project is exceptional. The quantum approach to climate variable modeling is innovative in ways few adults in the field have achieved." "Thank you," Tyler replied, wariness evident in his posture. Maxwell turned his attention to Tasha, his expression hardening slightly. "You should have told me." Tasha felt a surge of anger, hot and clarifying. 16 years of struggle, of sacrifice, of building a life for their son without help. And this was his opening line? "Told you what?" she asked, her voice steady and cold. "That the baby you offered to pay me to take care of had grown into a brilliant young man? I did tell you. Every year on his birthday for 5 years. You chose not to respond." Tyler stepped closer to his mother, a protective gesture that made Maxwell's eyes narrow. "You knew I was applying to your foundation," Tyler said. Not a question but a statement. "My name was on the application. You could have disqualified me then if you didn't want to face this." Maxwell studied his son with new intensity. I didn't see the applications personally. The committee makes the initial selections. Your name only came to my attention yesterday when the finalist list crossed my desk. And now, Tasha asked, will you disqualify him because he's your son? Or because I'm his mother? Maxwell's gaze shifted between them, calculation evident in his expression. The scholarship is awarded on merit. Tyler's project is clearly meritorious. But, Tyler prompted, hearing the unspoken qualification. But this creates complications, Maxwell admitted. Questions will be asked if my son, previously unacknowledged, suddenly receives the Foundation's flagship scholarship. I'm not asking you to acknowledge me, Tyler said. His voice steady despite the emotion Tasha could see building behind his eyes. I'm not asking you for anything except the fair consideration my work deserves. Maxwell's expression shifted, something like surprise flickering across his features. You're very direct. I was raised to speak the truth, Tyler replied, a hint of challenge in his voice. Even when it's uncomfortable. The corner of Maxwell's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement. A valuable trait, if occasionally inconvenient. He moved to the window, looking out over the city he'd helped shape. The committee will make its decision based solely on the merits of your project. I won't interfere either way. How generous of you, Tasha said, unable to keep the sarcasm from her voice, to allow your son to compete fairly for something he's already earned. Maxwell turned, his eyes narrowing at her tone. You've developed quite an edge, Tasha. 16 years of single motherhood will do that, she replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. Especially when you're raising a child whose father threatened to destroy you if you asked for help. A flash of something, perhaps discomfort, crossed Maxwell's face before his corporate mask slipped back into place. That was a different time. I was protecting what I'd built. No, Tasha said, stepping forward. You were protecting yourself. Your image. Your convenience. Don't pretend it was about the company. Tyler watched this exchange with wide eyes, witnessing for the first time the dynamic between his parents. His mother's fierce strength, his father's cold calculation. Mom, he said quietly, touching her arm. It's okay. It's not okay, Tasha replied, her voice softening as she looked at her son. None of this is okay. But we're not here for apologies or explanations. We're here for your future. She turned back to Maxwell, her posture straight, her chin lifted in a gesture Tyler recognized from whenever she faced challenges. My son deserves this scholarship, not because he's your son, but because he's brilliant, because he's worked harder than anyone I know to develop his mind and his talents. If your committee has any integrity, they'll recognize that. Maxwell studied her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. You've changed. We both have, Tasha replied. The difference is, I've changed for the better. The barb landed visibly, Maxwell's jaw tightening. I think we're done here. The committee will contact you with their decision. As they left the Coleman Foundation building, stepping into the bright afternoon sunlight, Tasha felt a strange mixture of emotions. Anger at Maxwell's continued emotional detachment, pride in Tyler's composure, and an unexpected sense of liberation. For 16 years, Maxwell Coleman had been a shadow in their lives, a powerful absence that shaped their choices and challenges. Today, they had faced that shadow and found it less intimidating than they'd feared. What now? Tyler asked as they waited for the bus that would take them home. Now we wait, Tasha said. And whatever happens, we face it together, just like we always have. 3 days later, Tasha's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She answered to find herself speaking with Dr. Eleanor Winters. Ms. Williams, I'm calling regarding Tyler's scholarship application, the woman said, her tone professionally neutral. The committee has completed its deliberations. Tasha's heart raced. Yes. I'm pleased to inform you that Tyler has been selected as this year's recipient of the Coleman Foundation STEM Excellence Scholarship. His project was unanimously considered the most innovative and promising among all applicants. Relief and pride washed over Tasha. That's wonderful news, Tyler will be thrilled. There is one additional matter, Dr. Winters continued, her voice shifting slightly. Mr. Coleman has requested a meeting with you and Tyler tomorrow afternoon at his office. He was quite insistent. Tasha's guard immediately rose. Did he say what this is about? He didn't share details with me, Dr. Winters replied. Only that it concerns matters beyond the scholarship itself. After ending the call, Tasha sat motionless, trying to process this development. What could Maxwell want now? Was he planning to publicly acknowledge Tyler as his son? Or was this some attempt to control the narrative, to ensure their connection remained hidden? When Tyler returned from school, she shared both pieces of news, the scholarship award and Maxwell's request for a meeting. We don't have to go, she told him. The scholarship is already yours. It's a legally binding offer. Tyler considered this, his expression thoughtful. I think we should hear what he has to say, not for his sake but for ours. For closure, if nothing else. The next afternoon found them once again in an elevator, rising toward the top floor of Quantum Dynamics headquarters, a building even more imposing than the Foundation offices. Maxwell's executive assistant, a polished woman in her 40s, greeted them with practiced efficiency and led them to a private conference room rather than Maxwell's office. Mr. Coleman will join you shortly, she said, closing the door behind her. The room offered a panoramic view of the city, the same city where Tasha had struggled to make rent while raising Tyler alone. The irony wasn't lost on her. Whatever he says, Tasha told Tyler quietly, remember that you've already won. The scholarship is yours on merit. You don't owe him anything. The door opened, and Maxwell entered, accompanied by a serious-looking man carrying a leather portfolio. Tasha, Tyler, thank you for coming, Maxwell said, his tone formal. This is Andrew Hargrove, Quantum Dynamics General Counsel. Tasha's defenses immediately went up. You brought a lawyer to this meeting? For documentation purposes only, Maxwell assured her, taking a seat across from them. What I'm about to propose has legal implications that need to be properly recorded. Propose? Tasha repeated, suspicion evident in her voice. Maxwell nodded to Hargrove, who opened his portfolio and removed several documents. I've spent the past 3 days reviewing my choices and their consequences. It's not something I do often, looking backward rather than forward. How enlightened of you, Tasha couldn't help saying. Maxwell accepted the barb with a slight nod. I deserve that, and more. He turned his attention to Tyler. Your comments the other day, about speaking the truth even when it's uncomfortable, they resonated with me. Tyler remained silent, watching his father with cautious eyes. I've built an empire by controlling variables, by eliminating uncertainties, by making rational rather than emotional decisions. Maxwell continued. It's been an effective business strategy. As a human strategy, however, he paused, seeming to search for words. The results have been less optimal. Is this an apology? Tasha asked, her tone skeptical. It's a recognition, Maxwell replied, of mistakes made, opportunities missed. He looked directly at Tyler. A son abandoned. The blunt acknowledgement hung in the air between them. What I'm proposing today won't change the past, Maxwell continued, but it might offer something for the future. He nodded to Hargrove, who slid several documents across the table. First, a formal acknowledgement of paternity, making official what DNA would undoubtedly confirm. Second, a trust fund established in Tyler's name, containing shares of Quantum Dynamics currently valued at approximately $50 million. Tasha gasped despite herself. What? Third, Maxwell continued, a position for you, Tasha, should you want it, as head of our new ethical computing division. Your background in encryption combined with your unique perspective on ethical considerations would be valuable to the company. You're trying to buy us, Tasha said, her voice hard. After all these years, you think you can just write a check and make everything okay? No, Maxwell said, surprising her with his directness. I know I can't buy forgiveness or erase 16 years of absence. Money doesn't solve those problems. Then why the sudden generosity? Tasha demanded. Maxwell looked at Tyler, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time. Because I saw myself in that conference room. Not just physically, though the resemblance is striking, but intellectually. The way you think, the way you analyze problems, the way you stand your ground. His gaze shifted to Tasha. And I saw what you built without me, the person you raised, the values you instilled that I've spent a lifetime overlooking. He leaned forward, his expression more open than Tasha had ever seen it. I'm not offering money as compensation. I'm offering recognition, acknowledgement, a statement that I was wrong and you were right. Tyler, who had remained silent throughout this exchange, finally spoke. What exactly are you acknowledging? That you are my son, Maxwell said simply. That I should have been there. That your mother made the right choice in refusing my settlement and raising you with principles rather than privilege. Tyler studied his father's face, searching for sincerity. And what do you want in return? Nothing you're not willing to give, Maxwell replied. I'm not asking to suddenly play father after 16 years of absence. I'm not expecting forgiveness I haven't earned. I'm simply acknowledging the truth and offering resources that should have been yours all along. Tasha felt tears threatening, unexpected and unwelcome. This was the conversation she had imagined countless times over the years, the acknowledgement she had stopped believing would ever come. Why now? She asked, her voice thick with emotion. Why after 16 years? Maxwell's answer was surprisingly candid. Because for the first time, I was confronted with the reality of what I'd given up. Not in theory, not in a birth announcement or a yearly photo, but in person. A brilliant young man who carries my name and my intellect, but with a moral compass I never developed. It was illuminating. He turned to Tyler. I don't expect forgiveness. I haven't earned it. But I am asking for a chance to know who you are, on whatever terms you're comfortable with. Tyler looked at his mother, a silent question in his eyes. This is your decision, Tasha told him softly. Whatever you choose, I'll support you. Tyler turned back to Maxwell, his expression serious beyond his years. I'll consider it, but I have conditions. Name them, Maxwell said immediately. First, no public announcement until I'm ready. I won't be a PR opportunity or a heartwarming story for your shareholders. Maxwell nodded. Agreed. Second, my relationship with you doesn't change anything between me and Mom. She raised me. She's my parent. You're something we'll figure out over time. Of course, Maxwell agreed. Third, Tyler continued, his voice steady. You make this right with her. Not just with money or a job offer, but with real recognition of what she did and what you didn't do. She deserves that. Tasha felt her heart swell with pride and love for this remarkable young man she'd raised. Maxwell studied Tyler for a long moment, something like respect dawning in his eyes. You negotiate like a Coleman. I stand my ground like a Williams, Tyler corrected him. For the first time, a genuine smile crossed Maxwell's face. Touché. He turned to Tasha. Your son is right. You deserve more than I can ever give. But I am offering what I can. Acknowledgement, opportunity, and yes, financial security. Not because it erases the past, but because it's the right thing to do now. Tasha looked at the documents on the table, then at her son, then at the man she had once loved. I don't need your money, Maxwell. I never did. What I needed was your respect. Your recognition that our child mattered more than your corporate image. I understand that now, Maxwell said quietly. 16 years too late, but I understand. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past and the possibilities of the future hanging between them. I'll think about the job offer, Tasha finally said. On my terms, not yours, and only if it's something I can believe in, not just a gesture of atonement. Maxwell nodded. That's fair. As for the rest, she continued, that's between you and Tyler. I won't stand in the way of whatever relationship you choose to build. But I won't pretend the past didn't happen either. I wouldn't expect you to, Maxwell replied. 6 months later, Tasha stood in her new office at Quantum Dynamics, reviewing the ethical guidelines her team had developed for the company's artificial intelligence systems. The position had turned out to be more than a token gesture. Maxwell had given her real authority and resources to ensure the company's technologies were developed with human welfare as a priority, not just profit. Tyler, now in his final semester of high school, had begun spending occasional afternoons in quantum dynamics research labs, working alongside scientists who treated him as a colleague rather than a teenager. His relationship with Maxwell remained cautious but was gradually evolving into something meaningful, not the traditional father-son bond that might have formed if Maxwell had been present from the beginning, but something uniquely their own. A knock at her office door pulled Tasha from her thoughts. Maxwell stood in the doorway, more casually dressed than usual in a sweater rather than his typical suit. "Do you have a minute?" he asked. Tasha gestured to the chair across from her desk. "What's on your mind?" Maxwell sat, his expression unusually reflective. "I was just in a board meeting where we reviewed the ethical guidelines your division developed. They're going to change how we approach AI development completely." "That's the idea," Tasha said, a hint of pride in her voice. "It made me think about something Tyler said to me last week," Maxwell continued. "He said that the most valuable thing you taught him wasn't coding or mathematics, but how to stand firm when it matters. How to choose principles over expedience." Tasha waited, sensing there was more. 16 years ago, I offered you what I thought was the practical solution," Maxwell said quietly. "Money in exchange for simplicity. You chose the harder path because it was the right one. And now I see the results of that choice every day in our son." The words "our son," spoken so naturally without hesitation, caught Tasha by surprise. For years, Tyler had been her son in her mind, the child she had raised alone. Now, slowly, he was becoming their son, in a way she had never expected. "He's extraordinary," Maxwell continued, "and that's because of you, Tasha. Because you refused to take the easy way out. Because you built something I couldn't buy with all my billions, a person of integrity." Tasha felt a complex mixture of emotions. Pride in Tyler, vindication for her choices, and an unexpected sense of peace about the past. "Thank you for recognizing that." Maxwell nodded, rising to leave. At the door he paused. "Tyler mentioned you're both coming to dinner on Sunday." "We are," Tasha confirmed. These monthly dinners had become a cautious tradition, a space where the three of them were learning to navigate their unusual family dynamic. "I'm looking forward to it," Maxwell said simply and left. As Tasha returned to her work, she reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this point. 16 years ago, she had faced a powerful man who had threatened to destroy her if she didn't disappear quietly. Today, that same man was acknowledging her worth, respecting her authority, and gradually learning what it meant to be a father. The change hadn't come because Maxwell had suddenly developed a conscience. It had come because Tyler, through his brilliance, his integrity, and his courage, had forced his father to see what truly mattered. And because Tasha had stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated by wealth or power, insisting on respect rather than charity. The scholarship application that had once filled her with dread had become the catalyst for an unexpected reckoning, one that had transformed not just Tyler's educational opportunities, but the very foundation of their lives. It had forced Maxwell Coleman to confront the son he'd rejected and the woman he'd threatened. And in that confrontation, it wasn't Maxwell's wealth or power that had dominated the room. It was Tasha's unwavering principles and Tyler's clear-eyed integrity. For 16 years, Maxwell Coleman had been the shadow looming over their lives. Now, unexpectedly, he had become just a man. Flawed, complicated, and finally forced to reckon with the consequences of his choices. If the story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up for your principles can lead to unexpected blessings. And if you want more stories about courage, integrity, and the power of truth to transform lives, subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison. Remember, sometimes the hardest choices we make become the foundation for our greatest strengths. I'll see you in the next story.